Welcome to Beyond the Transaction, a podcast focused on payments for the ISV and Fintech world. I'm your host, Todd Linden, and I'm CEO of Woodforest Acceptance Solutions. Each week, I'll sit down with leaders across payments and financial technology to unpack how real businesses scale through better data, smarter infrastructure, and aligned partnerships. If you care about how payments actually impact growth, you're in the right place. Welcome to Beyond the Transaction, and I've got a very distinguished guest with me today, Bill Dobbins, who head of US Enablement for Visa. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
I always have trouble keeping track of your titles because you've had such a distinguished career, but they continue to add more and more to what you do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing.
they must like me a little bit.
Well, they do, and they should. It's for good reason. You know, before we start talking about, payments and all of the stuff that we're doing together in many cases in payments, I want to thank you for your partnership. And I mean that more broadly to the industry. I was thinking about this on the plane today, and, you're so good with communicating to the membership, to the payments world, all the things that are going on, whether they be product innovation, whether they be kind of payment, you know, community type issues that impact us all, and even on the the less fun stuff, the regulatory stuff. You add a level of context that really helps us, not only digest the information that you bring to us, but it also gives us the ability to make that communication actionable on our side. So I appreciate that.
Yes. I mean, it's you got to be transparent. You got to be open. Ours is an industry where clients and partnerships matter. So it's really how you engage and you share what you can.
Yeah, and it changes.
hmm Often,
Do
daily.
you do you remember, we've both been in the business a long time. Can you remember any segment of time that has had as much rapid change? I know there's been industry consolidation every 5, 7 years. There's this big, consolidation. But in terms of just overall change with technology and, you know, um, advanced payment methods and just the whole, payment experience, both on the consumer side and the acceptance side. Do you remember a time that's been this?
I would say last 5 years. I mean, it's been nonstop from the wallets to other all payments to the regulatory issues. Everything is it's just a nonstop state of change. But like you, I wouldn't want to be in any other industry than payments.
No, no, it's a blessing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but that's such a great preamble. Just reflecting upon what's been happening over the last 5 years and what's happening now, I think is a great preamble for, kind of what I was hoping to really dig into with you today a little bit about. It is about change. It's about, you know, um, for me as a processor, acquirer, platform provider, partnerships are so important. And you know, I and by partnerships, I mean the partnership like we have with you and the Visa team and Visa Acceptance Solutions, and the way that those partnerships actually can pave, what we're doing and with embedded and integrated payments and feature really feature centric payments, where we're trying to, for the first time, extend value. I wonder, from your point of view, both personally and from a Visa, if you feel like going into that, where how important are those partnerships to really being able to stay on top of a more modernized payment environment?
I think it's key, and hopefully we'll touch on some of the things, the value and everything else. But partnership is key, particularly in our environment. I mean, it's clear that an issuer and a co-brand partner, the two are linked relative to their interests in innovation. But if you think about our industry, and there's no real swim lanes. I mean, you've got competition, which is good across the board. I mean, when you're faced with a build versus buy decision that you might have to make for your business, sometimes the best partnerships can be with someone who in some parts of the business might compete with you. And I think we all just need to recognize that a strong partnership can come from different ways. It doesn't have to be so absolute alignment. You can find that alignment and mutually benefit and still to some degree compete.
Yeah, that's so spot on. The build versus buy, those words come out. Those are decisions that we make all the time. And you guys make those decisions all the time. And I think that building now in this environment is more like stitching, because if any of us were trying to build all the things that we need to be modern,
Mhm.
to add and extend value, it's unachievable.
Right.
Right?
And
It's
by the
just too
time you
much.
get there, it's someplace else. I
It's
mean,
somewhere
you're
else.
chasing the puck all the time.
Yep, yep. Nothing's mainstream till it is, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, and so that my business is so ISV centric. We, in our collaboration with the CyberSource people, to kind of do an overarching kind of look at it, we spent so much time building our playbook and our ISV, integration system, to a place where ISVs that are vertically dispositioned
Mhm.
can be ready to accept payments in an omni-channel environment with a path to actually own those payments for an ISV. Where do you see that? Do you see an end to that? They're already talking about, how AI is going to hit a wall. I don't see an end to the ISV's desire to continue to integrate payment options.
Yeah, nor do I. And I think we've talked before. I really think the ISVs and partnership with them is key for our industry. The beauty of an ISV is they don't start payments first, right? A lot of us
Right.
cut our teeth. We were payments first and we would sell payments. That's not what they do. They sell benefit. I mean, if you're a contractor, the first thing you're thinking about isn't payments. It's scheduling. It's all the things they need to do to manage their business. But when organizations like yours engage with the ISVs, they can embed payment as a viable solution for a contractor or a restaurant or whomever, um, but then begin to, based on their desire to take ownership of the payment process. I mean, not all of them will become PayFacs, but maybe some will. They need a partner who can help them or educate them on the right way to manage payments. Maybe it's as simple as a referral, doesn't work as well as if it's more embedded, but then ultimately add more value that they can further monetize as part of their software packages.
Yeah, we're in with your help, obviously, we've really tried to eliminate the friction for ISVs. It, I think that I was surprised, though we knew that that was where we wanted to take the business. I think that I was surprised by the size of that universe. And the fact that I have a couple of examples, and I'm sure, I'd like your take on this, where we have a merchant who is the ISV and the CRM and their own merchant processor because we've enabled them to accept the payments. And it's in one of those customers does $1 billion annualized on our rails. And what's interesting to me is the next steps for us as we evolve our companies to use you know data insights to help them grow their business on an enterprise level. It has nothing to do with giving them information about their customers because they are their own customer,
Yeah.
but now they're looking at efficiency, acquisitions. all sorts of different stories that the data that they process on their own behalf, at least theoretically speaking, in the environment that I introduced with that example, they're learning their direction, their path forward from a market share perspective, and it's an interesting kind of business case.
I mean, I think you're onto it. That unlock is critical, and I think a lot of organizations don't do it. The amount of data we have, and maybe that is their data partnered with other people's data to give them the business insights that they need. I mean, if you take it to the extreme, where should they be looking to build another location? What are the types of customers coming in, and what can they discern from that to perhaps change their offering, appeal to a different set of client? I mean, that data, if used properly, is critical to these clients.
Yeah, and it's all done obviously in a very safe way, right? We're not identifying customers. We're
Totally.
giving we're painting a aggregated story,
Hmm.
that we can then use different tools and different business intelligence to help an ISV and help the merchant community make decisions.
Exactly. That's where we're getting to real value. Now we're not just a part of it. We are providing real business value. And then if you take value beyond that, I mean they have their core business, we're adding value. And I joke sometimes, some in our industry think value is offering a surcharging solution. But real value comes from the data, it comes from getting into their payables, getting into their payroll. It's all part of us becoming a better partner with the merchant and ISV community.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the past. Understanding their own data better than they do most routinely, I would say, from a legacy system perspective, also helps them. Understanding, where their performance is with
Sure.
authorizations and returns and chargebacks, and then really modeling out what type of acceptance environment do they need to be in, and how can they match that other places.
Totally. And I think that you would agree that the data also opens up value added solutions that perhaps they didn't know they needed, that we have, you have, and it really just drives the entire cycle.
Yeah, it drives them. Yeah, it does. That cycle drives them forward. I talked in a previous podcast about it's a story,
Hmm.
right? And and an authorization is nothing more than a timestamp. I think I use that as an example, but that timestamp in retrospect, in the review mirror, tells a story that oftentimes kind of paves their future.
Totally.
So, so moving on from the ISV community and into another place that, another market segment that that we love, is really the middle market and the enterprise market. Again, payment orchestration, uh, approval rates, interchange optimization, right? And then the data. Now this is the marketplace, and I think that a lot of what we're doing today in those market segments gets pushed down to the SMB community in a more actionable, digestible form with data. But your thoughts on you know the partnerships and what it'll take from a payment perspective to level the playing field so that some of these middle market players can actually enjoy what a lot of the enterprise marketplace does on their own behalf. In other words, with their data strength and their ability to, um, just their own internal capabilities to use the data and to make actionable marketing campaigns and growth decisions. I think that the partnerships like the one that we have together really becomes a tool to level the playing field so that some of those middle market, you know, um, market segments can get on a more level playing field. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, I do. There was some research that Visa did a few years ago, and it was really telling to me. I think when you and I were starting in this business, it was very common for a merchant of almost any size to lean on their primary bank in order to gain acceptance. When we did the research in 2024, I believe, it was 15% of all new acceptors were still going to their primary banks. It basically, regardless of their size, middle market, small, they are leaning towards the organizations that can provide them the solutions that they need to compete with the enterprise merchants, to accelerate that. I mean, these things on us, the SLAs, particularly the more upscale you go or upmarket you go, that's personal attention, that's all these bells and whistles, that's advanced fraud and risk scoring models. It are things that, you know, I always think a merchant's primary, if they were sitting here with us, they want to sell their product. That's what they want to do.
Sure.
But now the expectations on us to be able to support them in that. You mentioned omni-channel, you mentioned all payment, you mentioned cost, you know, ease of onboarding. They want faster settlement. All these things have. We talked about pace of change. They've become table stakes for us now in
Yes.
in going after these clients. And yes, I'm sure for us in the business, there's going to be margin compression, but if we do this the right way, we're going to have more clicks, we'll have stickiness. I mean, retention of clients is still critical to an acquirer. So, if we can make the clients more sticky with data and everything else, make them compete, help them do things to sell their products, I think we're all going to be successful.
Yeah, and it's well, during that same time frame that you and I had really started to, I think, perfect our partnership. One of the things that I think I communicated to you was the fact that being in a position, which I think is hugely important for ISVs or any vertically dispositioned, you know, processor or payment acquirer or payment oriented fintech, being in a position to deploy some of the tools, particularly those of what Visa has had in some cases for a long time. They've evolved and they've gotten better, but being in a position to deploy those are so important. I even think of decision manager is always like the first thing that comes to my mind in that regard. And it's entirely important that those tools, which are difference makers to these organizations, have some visibility to the actual end user.
Going.
They're kept in the back office, and what we're trying to do is we're trying not to be reactive to an issue. We're trying to be able to be really in front of that to the merchant community, especially in the middle market, and introduce those tools as the tools that are going to give them and advance them into that kind of that enterprise toolkit that I think they all seek to have.
And I love the optionality because you could do it, but like something like Decision Manager, they can self-select. They can decide how they want to manage their business, which years ago it was like you would manage it yourself, but now they're demanding the ability to have a say in it. We're providing them tools that allow them to tweak the knob a little bit and figure out, what's good, what's bad based on their tolerances. So I definitely think it's great.
Yeah, and they do continue to evolve, and just again, being able to be out in front and communicate those things is what's been lost for the last several years. It's provoked, in my opinion, poor business culture in this kind of race to zero environment that we're in. I, and I and I look at the ISO world, right? Which I've been a part of, ran one of the biggest ISO businesses in the country, um, up until 2017, and we really we had success because we're real product centric. I don't know. I don't think personally that that model has legs today. And not at least for my own, kind of business ambition. But I do believe in the spirit of the tools, in the spirit of frictionless ISV boarding, I believe that ISOs who are very vertically centric, vertically dispositioned, who seek to extend their businesses through a vertical, perhaps morph into an ISV or work in collaboration with ISVs that are in that vertical. I think that that is where the future of the ISO business is. And I'm hoping that the value proposition going forward, again, by illuminating the availability of intelligent tools, whether they be, business intelligence tools or decision maker or all of the tools that you guys have that are so easily extended to merchants through ISVs and through ISOs. I'm hoping that the race to zero is enveloped by feature, benefit, value add.
I agree with everything you said. I think this, and it gets back to the value proposition. They Racing to zero doesn't serve anything because we provide an enormous value to clients. ISOs partnering with ISPs, offering solutions that extend beyond the basic merchant discount rate. That's what we all need to be striving for. It's not the it's not the this is what it cost me to process a transaction. It's them recognizing that that's sure that's a piece of the relationship, but it's the data. It's the how are we driving new customers? It's the how are we optimizing approvals? How can I get into loyalty? All these things are what separate us in the eyes of middle market clients, large enterprise clients, even small businesses to a large degree. That's where we have to keep trying to get to.
Yeah, and first of all, I still believe that safely processing payments is a huge value, even though we've already crushed that down to nothing. But we sit in the optimal position in a business that accepts payments. We are in a position to help them well beyond the transaction, which is a convenient way to put it for this podcast. But we don't do it.
Right.
We fail, we leave it, we've have a industry reputation, especially if it's beneath that middle market where just process my payment and do it as inexpensively as you can because I have somebody walking through my door every day who claims they can charge me less.
Exactly.
Instead of coming in and saying, I'm going to safely process your payments and I'm going to perhaps eliminate relationships that you have with third parties that are telling you the same story that I'm the one that writes for you as your payment processor in the case of data, right? In the case of protection, risk, fraud, compliance, all of those things. And even the payment piece never seems, to be important until there's a data breach or there's consumer information now that has somehow found its way into somebody else's hands or there's identity theft on that merchant. All of a sudden there's a real problem here,
Uh-huh.
and the race to zero looks a lot less important.
Right.
But we don't know, none of us want to see lessons learned, to find value extension to the merchant community.
I think it's clients like you know, it's you're what you're trying to do is what the everybody should be thinking about. If it is if it is purely, because you're right, there's not stickiness. Everyone is playing the price game, and we're just losing. Like I sit there all the time, and I know I didn't want to get in any regulatory things, but we have long since stopped reminding people of why payments are critical to them. And when we play at the bottom, there's nothing in it for them to say, you know what, payments, it's an important part of my business. It's not just a cost and line item. It is critical to what I want to do as a seller. And that's where, as long as I'm in the business, I'm not going to give up trying to make that happen. It doesn't seem like you are either. We just have to keep reminding people every day.
Well, I'm going to walk around. I'm going to see you for the next 3 weeks.
Yes, you are.
Next week in New York and Atlanta at DT after that. And I am going to give you full credit for don't play at the bottom.
Don't play
We
at the
got to
bottom.
stop playing at the bottom. You're exactly right. So about, and we had some conversation last year at the acquiring committee advisory meeting in San Francisco. I think it was Oliver that brought up the agentic commerce thing. Where's what's that looking like? What's what are I know there's opportunities. I can't wait to get my hands on them. Tell me where your head's at with that.
I think uh, it's hard not to see what's going on with agentic as the next big wave in commerce. I mean, when you look at it, well, what's the stat I remember? ChatGPT secured 100 million users in less than 3 months. So clearly there's something here. And I think what we have to do is if buying is going to change from a human driven checkout to an intent driven checkout, it's going to be on all of us to figure out how we make sure that that is what we expect it to be from a payment standpoint. Like, I mean, people's behavior will be different. You and I might use the functionality to search, but I'm still going to do the purchase myself. You may choose to just let it happen, but either way, you're introducing agents acting as humans. We're going to need to have a, trusted agent protocol so a merchant knows this is a good one to let in versus one that isn't. We're going to have to make sure that intent is clear. So when you start getting into chargebacks and things like that, we have we have the ability to discern what was the original intent. How do our traditional chargeback and protection rules work? And really, it most basic is you have to change the definitions. Regs were written years ago with rules on both sides. Agents weren't contemplated. All these things is where the industry needs to focus. And you know, Visa has a leading place in that, and we will be very active and provide those solutions for both our issuing and acquiring side clients so that you guys can iterate with your merchants relative to agentic commerce.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by it. Of course, we're using some agentic tools, AI tools in our playbook, ISP playbook, in collaboration, I think, with you know with CyberFirst. It certainly is from a task service operating perspective. It's um, extremely helpful, right? I mean, it's and I from a staffing perspective and stuff, we're really big on only humans can imagine and empathize, right? And then we can use that as the ingenuity to use tools. As it pertains to commerce, I, I keep going. I can see where certain merchants can orchestrate a payment experience with an agentic commerce model, but I'm also looking at how that may make its way into certain ISVs, particularly ISVs that have multiple types of functionality, right? Where an ISV can perform, compare certain services, like in the service vertical. I think it's very interesting, and so I find it anxious. I know there's going to have to be some guardrails, and it's going to be a moving target for the next short while, right?
But I think, like on your point, so you take something like B2B, right? I see this as, we've tried for how many years? I've seen how many pies on the trillions in, B2B payments that largely haven't made their way to you know, the network type rails. But this gives absolutes. It allows for that procurement process to happen seamlessly, where suppliers can serve up, you know, the products that you want across a very broad ecosystem, perhaps contracts, non-contracts, but this opens the door, I think, to ISVs stepping in, iterating on top of that, creating buying portals, and being able to, meet the buyer seller where they want to be to drive the transaction for everybody.
It's gonna be so
I
exciting.
agree.
I'm I just try to apply is the use case, right? But again, like I do understand, I have it, I see it on the banking side, I see it um, on the payment and the fintech side. I obviously that card brands have got to. If we don't build our own rails, we're gonna have somebody come in and build rails for us, which we don't need. So, what else do you think's happening before we wrap it up? What else do you see as your kind of executive outlook of payments in the next 12, 24 months? What's in it for the kind of short midterm?
I think talking about it, agentic is right. I think that we're going to continue to see that expand, where it becomes secure in the network and people can innovate on top of it. I mean, you can't go a day without talking about stablecoin and stablecoin technology. And I think there's a constant debate on where it fits. There's some things you can't dispute. It offers 7 day settlement, which the current
Yes.
network doesn't. It offers the ability to manage complex on-chain B2B type transactions, and the use case relative to the fluctuating currencies, particularly as you get outside the U.S. It offers real solutions. Now, do I believe that it's going to displace the retail purchasing environment that we experience today using the card-based infrastructure? I don't see that. I don't see that, but I do believe that it'll become a part of our tech and continue to expand.
You guys have put a big investment on the stablecoin side.
Yeah, and I think there are some clear use cases that open up a lot of channels that are not currently available to us, and it makes a lot of sense.
Will there be a chance in the realm of partnership with you guys to integrate some of that into an offering, do you think, down the road, or is it too early on to really?
I think it may be too early on. I mean, the blockchain itself, there are some things that we have that it has to improve. I mean, there's no privacy, right? It is open. It's an open ledger. Everybody can see. So things like that need to be resolved. I think it needs to be open. That having anything that's closed in any way to others to iterate, I think that's problematic.
Yeah.
But I still think it's early. I think it's definitely worth discussion, and you're going to see early adopters. We're already seeing it going out there, and Visa's going to partner with them to expand and really crystallize the use cases.
I commend you guys for that. It's been great. Well, listen, I said it in the beginning, and I'm going to say it now. I really appreciate you joining me. You and I have had so much fun, in the past couple of years building stuff and working together. But I really am very pleased and honored that you are my guest today. So thank you very much.
Totally my pleasure. I'd forgotten about we're gonna see each other 3 times over the next
I
3
know
weeks.
that's a record for us.
I know, we're gonna hit different things. We'll go cold, we'll go warm, we'll go everywhere and hang out.
Well, it sounds good. What do you think we go maybe try to play golf this afternoon?
Listen, my boss might listen to this, so yes, but don't tell him.
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
okay. All right. Hey, thank you, Bill. To learn more about the topics we discussed today or to explore more about how modern payment infrastructure can support your business, visit toddlinden.com or woodforestpay.com. Thanks for spending time with us on Beyond the Transaction.